We did all kinds of things, from having ice cream stands to get up a tequila bar and things like that. Probably the most difficult thing if you're a company like that is like, how do you stand out? I come from the world of Forbes, which the content was more top of funnel. It all comes down to trust, and obviously the legacy media companies built that trust and developed it over years. That I always think about is this 95-5 rule in B2B content. So it's all about the authentic connections, right? Be very careful that you're not constantly flooding them with product benefits and information, and things change their perception of you in a way that's not necessarily salesy or related to the product. Media publishers in general are struggling to get the eyeballs. You don't want something to come across as, oh, this is an ad, like they're trying to sell me. AI is changing everything in terms of the way people are creating. Oh my God, this is going to replace me. It's going to take my job away. 95% of all decisions, even in the B2B side, involve emotion.
Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of the B2B show. I'm your host, Ugi, and I'm running Content Monk, a content marketing agency, and B2B Vault, a media company for B2B marketers like yourself. Today's guest is the founder of a Wonderfish agency and ex-marketing executive at Forbes. And the episode that you are about to listen is probably going to be one of the best episodes you ever listen to, because from the mind of an ex-marketing executive at Forbes, I extracted secret insights and knowledge on what can B2B companies, modern B2B companies, learn from 100-year-old legacy media businesses on longevity, fighting the trends and other stuff. And we also uncovered a lot of different things about turning modern B2B day companies into media companies for getting more audience, more trust, and hence more customers. And James walked me through the editing process at Forbes on how their team creates amazing stories that sell. So buckle up, because this is going to be one great episode. Let's get started. Since you're very fascinated with MarTech right now, how do you look at this entire commoditization aspect of MarTech software right now? For example, interactive product demo software was a thing a few months back, a year back, but now you have 30, 40 of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm noticing. I think that's probably the most difficult thing for if you're a company like that is how do you stand out? Because there are so many companies out there. I first heard about UserFlow, for example, and I actually heard about them on a podcast, and then I went to Google it, and I noticed this is one of the smart things people can do if you're, I guess it's a lower funnel tactic where you're Googling something and it'll say, they'll buy the keyword for whoever you're Googling. And that's what this company Product Flows did. They said, hey, we're better than UserFlow or whatever, try us. And they show the comparison page and all that. So I'm learning about, those lower funnel tactics because I come from, which we'll talk about. I come from the world of Forbes, which the content was more top of funnel. But yeah, it's how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself? Because there's so many tools, and that's what's insane right now. And I think with AI and the fact that it's becoming easier to build tools like these, you're gonna see even more coming up.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
We recently built one product for the first time. We hired. I mean we are a content agency, right? But recently we hired a guy who is basically head of development and AI, right? That's the title, official title we gave him. And you can create great products so fast right now. We created the entire chat with a knowledge base, with researching new content pieces in 3 weeks with all admin dashboards, user profiles, registration flows, drip email campaigns, everything. And I was really mind blown. But yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the differentiation a little bit later. Tell me something. You're coming from your job background is pretty impressive, and my entire team we were really fascinating while doing the research yesterday, and I'm also so proud of us for completing this entire research in this short period from yesterday to today. But yeah, it was a really funny journey. Anyway, tell me. you're coming from the world of legacy media companies, right? And these are the companies that exist for like 50, 80, 100 plus years. And compared to today, in the modern, let's say, B2B companies, like they have a pretty short span, most of them. Like, I don't know, 80, 90% of them don't exist in a year, 2 years. And especially with that kind of an AI thing replacing everything so fast and a lot of Me Too products coming in. So tell me, like, what can modern day B2B software companies learn from the legacy media companies? What are those lessons that we can all learn on like longevity, staying in the market, business, and the other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is, and it all comes down to trust, and obviously the legacy media companies built that trust and developed it over years. Like you said, I know I in particular worked at Forbes, which started in 1917, and the founder, he was originally a reporter, BC Forbes. He used to actually hang out in New York City at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. He'd just be eating his lunch or whatever, and he would hear what all the other stockbrokers were talking about, all the people in the financial world. And then he started Forbes. And interestingly, a lot of people don't realize this. Forbes was the one, I think, the first business magazine or business publication to really do these in-depth, long-form stories about the Rockefeller types, these people that were really moving and shaking, and the doers, he called them. But he built up his following as a reporter, and then was able to build up Forbes. And it takes time. And so from the perspective of, you're a newer company, you're a B2B SaaS software company or whatever, you don't always have the luxury of time to build up that trust. So I think there has to be other ways that you can do, you can build the trust. And I think that's always the challenge. Obviously, social proof, creating success stories, case studies, whatever you want to call it. Events are another. Like, I could talk about events all day. That was a big one of our big plays. Research, leveraging research and data and things of that nature to really showcase the value that your company is bringing, but not only about your company, but creating the type of content that adds value to them, that isn't necessarily about your company, which I can get into later as well. But yeah, that's kind of the way that I would look at it.
Basically, all comes down to having the most trust in the market and having original data, original researches, and original content that basically propels that and helps you build that trust.
Exactly.
How would you approach trust building right now in 2025 and 26 or whatever? Hey guys, just a real quick, sorry for interrupting the episode. Did you ever feel overwhelmed with the amount of low quality and crappy content that you find on Google and LinkedIn? Well, B2B Vault, the producers of this episode, solve that problem. B2B Vault is a database of hundreds and hundreds of expert level insights and articles written by 300 plus B2B marketing experts. And B2B Vault monitors hundreds of websites every single week to uncover new trends and new articles, so you are the first to learn the new trends, insights, and playbooks from the best B2B marketing minds. And every Monday morning, we send out a newsletter with a few most important reads every B2B marketer should read at the start of their week to make sure that you hit your quota and get more deals in the pipeline. So, just very quickly, if you're interested in this, go to theb2bvault.com/newsletter and join thousands of other B2B marketers in our Monday newsletter. See you there.
I think it's like at any given time, only 5% of your potential buyers are actively in the market to buy, and then the other 95% aren't. So a way to build trust, I mean, I think sometimes right now there's so much noise and spam, and especially I mean, in the olden days, I should say, like when I was starting out, and email was becoming a thing, and as far as using it in B2B marketing, like, people didn't necessarily send emails to random people if you didn't have their email address. It wasn't the norm. And nowadays, like, it's just becoming, your inbox is becoming flooded, and you're seeing messaging and outreach everywhere. And I don't think there's anything wrong with with outreach if done the right way, as long as it is, especially with these, that's the difficult part though with all these AI tools now, is to make sure that you're doing it the right way and it's authentic. So it's all about the authentic connections, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is if the majority of the people out there, that 95%, aren't even in the market to buy, I mean, right away, you have to be very careful that you're not constantly flooding them with product benefits and information and things like that. And it's just going to turn them off. So the way that I look at it is building up trust by, just being a provider of value, of information that's either inspirational, educational, does something to kind of change their perception of you in a way that's not necessarily salesy or related to the product, but it's like, oh, that's interesting. I like what they're talking about there. You know what I mean? So that to me is a way to build trust, because if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're constantly just spamming, talking only about your product, shoving it down people's throat, they're gonna start to question, like, their trust meters, like, or their sort of like scammy meter or whatever you want to call it, they don't necessarily like that kind of thing, is what I've noticed.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Tell me, you mentioned events, right? And I would say there is right now public opinion goes towards that events are basically the future of marketing.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how paradoxically that sounds, right? Because, like, again, with all of this AI, like, we have note takers, automated emails, everything, like, and
Yeah.
getting to those really down deep to the human to human interactions and connections,
Yeah.
it's really something that is going to take off very recently. So what's your approach about events? So first, tell me, do you think for the companies is more effective to host events or to go to events and build partnerships there? Like, how would you approach, let's say that you're in a B2B company right now, basically.
Yeah.
Let's say that's the question. Like, if you're in the B2B company right now with a decent amount of budget, right? So nothing extravaganza or nothing small, but a decent amount of budget, how would you leverage events for B2B growth? Give me your juiciest takes on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends. It's not a one size fits all answer there, because it depends on your overall strategy, right? If you're building a community, if you have an audience, I mean, audience development is one of the hardest components of event marketing, is getting the people in the seats and getting the people to attend. And so that's why, when I was at Forbes, that was one of the things that we did for the clients, even if it was a custom event, that we hosted events at our property in New York City called Forbes on Fifth. But we could do custom events anywhere, right? But then we also had these temple events that we did throughout the year that were tied to different editorial franchises, like Forbes 30 under 30 is one big example. That was kind of our flagship sort of like Super Bowl event. And I think that what it comes down to is your resources, your audience dev strategy. Like I said, it's a great way to jump right into event marketing by basically. And I don't want to say just like doing. You never just want to do like a logo slap and just say like, presented by whatever the brand, and we're just going to show up or whatever. I think there has to be a really natural integration at the event, and that's where the experiential activations come in and really try to come up with something that adds a lot of value and is interesting. And we had all kinds of things, from having ice cream stands to obviously you can have a tequila bar and things like that, but there was some really cool activations that we did, that tied to that specific brand. But I remember when I started at Forbes, so I actually started in 2014. I remember that was the first year that they were starting, or actually planning to launch the Under 30 Summit, and we launched it in Philadelphia the first year. But I was lucky because I came to Forbes, and my first week, any job, you don't have a ton of stuff to do other than just like onboarding and everything. And my boss at the time said, "Hey, Randall Lane, the chief content officer, and a couple people from the events team, we're going out to do a site visit in Philadelphia." And I actually got to tag along with them because everyone else was just super busy at the time doing their work and stuff. But I was able to see how an event is built from the ground up, and I walked around to all the different sites, like to be able to go to see like an open air. It was called Piazza at Schmitz in Philadelphia, is where we did the music festival the first year, and to be like Randall Lane was just a genius because he could just walk around, like see a space and kind of like think about like what he's going to turn it into, like almost like a paint canvas, like a painter taking canvas and figuring out how he's going to turn it into a work of art. But I think that was a sort of an educational process for me, and I dove right in. But then from then on, I was able to be the liaison because I was so involved for that franchise, and we built it up, and we allowed so many brands, like the Macallan was a huge brand that sponsored all of our under 30 events for many years, and then we moved it to Boston and Detroit and Tel Aviv and Africa. So yeah, the temple events, if you can get involved in those, you have an active audience already there, and that's really what you're doing as a partner, as an advertiser. The marketer is tapping into that existing audience, versus and maybe you're doing both, where you're tapping to existing audiences and then you're building up your own events, bringing your own audiences to your spaces as well.
Makes sense. So basically, so far, what we can conclude is like having original content and having an audience. Like that, these are the two key, let's say, pillars
Yeah.
of any serious company that wants to grow. Now, let's talk about that audience for a second. So, what would you say? What would be your approach for turning software companies into media companies? Because that's how you get the most audience and earn the most traffic.
Yeah, I think it's really finding a lane. And if you're going to be sort of a media company, you're not gonna be New York Times or Forbes or whatever, where you're just writing about everything. And even Forbes, we had swim lanes for each editorial, I guess, subject. So you had different subject matter experts. I think it's building, because you're not going to be able to hire this huge editorial staff either. It just takes
Yeah.
enormous amounts of resources. So what is the niche or the topic that you can own, and you're not writing about, you're not a product marketing team, you're not writing about the features and benefits of your product, because that's not what people want to read about. As I said, 95% of people aren't ready to buy. So if you're not ready to buy something, you're not going to want to sit there and read about it. So it's really creating content that's adding value and utility into people's lives. And it could be inspirational, it could be educational. I think Gong does a really great example, with Gong Labs, because they're using data, and they're using the data about sales reps across the board, and they're able to glean insights into kind of like the best ways to pitch and things like that. So it's providing or creating a bunch of content that adds value. In Gong's case, like, it's not necessarily about the product, but it's just adding insights and adding value to people's lives, and helping them solve their daily problems, really.
Tell me this, like before anyone should, start or invest a lot of resources into many different editorials, content pillars, types of content, even smaller content campaigns. Like I would say everything starts with launching one kind of a content pillar that you want to create and testing on that, repurposing that one and so on and so on. When talking about these content pillars, like, can we correlate them to specific editorial publications that you had inside Forbes, such as 30 under 30, Forbes, Shook, Top Advisors, that kind of stuff? Like, how would you approach that a single content editorial, content pillar launch process, operations behind that in smaller teams?
So I think that so you mentioned Shook. I mean, in the case with Shook, we actually partnered with a guy named RJ Shook, who, he used to be a financial advisor for many years, and then he created something called the Winner Circle, which it was basically insights and ranking. Like, he was actually created his own sort of ranking system about financial advisors that did qualitative and quantitative research. So even Forbes, who has been pillar really in the, I guess, business and finance world, for over 100 years, we didn't really have a successful practice when it came to the world of financial advisors. It's just like it's a whole world in and of itself. And so that's why we chose at the time to partner with RJ Shook and his company Shook to develop the Shook Top Advisor. So it's basically rankings. Starts with the top advisor in general, and then we ended up launching other lists underneath that. Top women, top Gen X advisors, and a number of different subsets of the list. So I think that's one of the things that you could think about is partnering with a third party, for example, if you're trying to do something that's more quantitative or even qualitative, where you're examining a subset of the market, or in our case, it was financial advisors. You don't have to do it all on your own. Forbes had the pipes and the distribution power, but our editorial team was busy doing. Everyone had their own assignments, right? Everyone's busy. And so you as a B2B company, you might not have, you likely don't have an editorial team. So there's ways to kind of partner with existing organizations, that whether it's a research organization, or maybe you're even partnering with another media brand to help fuel your content. I think that's a smart way to go about it.
Okay, so far, like, we know how to launch something, we know what things to create, right? Now, tell me this, like the final piece of the jigsaw. How the best writers and editors in Forbes approach the actual writing and editing of great stories? Like, how do they find them? How do they edit them? Because, like, in every piece of content, from my experience, it's like 20-30% of the time it's writing, and other 70% it's actually research and editing, and all the other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, the honest truth is the process for the Forbes staff writers is actually, it's very intensive. It's much different than if you're a Forbes contributor. So a lot of people don't realize. So you have, I don't know what the number is now, but at the time it was like close to 2,000 Forbes contributors who they aren't paid staffers. It's people like you or I who are subject matter experts. And that really launching that in the middle of 2000s really allowed Forbes to just scale and create a tremendous amount of content. I mean, now there are so many different algorithm changes to Google and to Facebook, and media publishers in general are struggling to get the eyeballs. But for the longest time, Forbes was crushing it just with the sheer amount of content because of all of these contributors. But I'll just get into so again, the contributors aren't necessarily they're vetted to a certain extent, but they're not edited the same way. It's kind of just like they're submitting their content, and then for the most part it's published as is. Whereas if you're a staff writer, there's fact checkers. Every article has to be extremely fact checked and double verified and researched and things of that nature, because a lot of that content from the staff writers also gets printed, and it's a different world when something gets printed, right? It's like you can't really change that. So yeah, it's a whole different ball game. But we at Forbes had a CMS, content management system, was called Birdie. So that was the back end where even the contributors had access to that. At an early point, it actually used AI to help provide insights. And I'm sure since I left a year ago, it's probably developed even further as far as like providing deeper insights into headline optimization, just different things that it'll tell the writer of things to think about as they're editing or writing. So it does use AI, which is kind of neat on the back end on the CMS. And Birdie's actually named after the founder, BC Forbes. His nickname was Birdie. So, but yeah, again, just extremely diligent on the staff side as far as editing and fact checking and things like that.
How would Randall Lane approach writing stories?
Well, Randall, he actually doesn't write a lot of stories now because he's the chief content officer. He has, he writes the column. He writes a column in the front of the magazine, and from time to time he does, I think, still write some stories. But I mean, I think he approaches it the same way any of the editors really do. Is, I mean, it starts with asking a lot of questions and asking the right questions and doing the research. like any journalist, it's really about digging and trying to uncover what most people don't know about that subject, right? What hasn't been said, what is a bold take or a different area that people aren't thinking about. And that's really what Forbes was all about, is the people, uncovering the people behind business. And people have a lot of different intricacies and quirks, and sometimes you can't get them to share what you really want, and so you have to have a way of like getting that out of people. And that's why it is journalism, just like anything, is a relationship business. And if you're a trusted journalist and you're respected, you're able to get someone like an Elon Musk or Donald Trump or whoever, to kind of like give you information that other people don't have access to. Really, it comes down to access. But the other thing I should mention is I talked about being about people, and journalism is a people business. PR is a people business. You're pitching to people. But one of the things I think Forbes realized, I think it was right before so I started in 2014. I don't know exactly what year they did this, but they doubled down on making sure every cover has a face on the cover of the magazine, because again, business is all about people. And really the philosophy was that people have the power to really change the world, through their own ingenuity. And that's really what Forbes was about. As I mentioned, BC Forbes early on, when he launched Forbes, was doing these in-depth business profiles about people. So that's really what it comes down to, really, for me, is like just being about people, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about stories for B2B company, right?
Mhm.
So I would say there is a majority of the stories in a storytelling way that we marketeers usually like think about them when we say like a storytelling. They're great for marketing. They're great, for improving awareness, getting engagement on socials or whatever. But most of them might lack when it comes to the actual buying process, when it comes to sales. So tell me, like, what's your approach on creating a story behind a brand that both, like, positions you top of mind in your market, positions you in the top consideration set, and also when it's time to close a deal, helps close a deal. How would you approach storytelling for B2B?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really it's a balance, right? Because you don't want something to come across as, oh, this is an ad, like they're trying to sell me. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's what any brand is trying to do. So it's like, when do you find the right time to integrate, the product and the features of a brand? It really depends on any particular brand, and there's a lot of different ways. From a B2B standpoint, I think really for me it was about, one, I think thought leadership was key, right? Where you're sort of integrating in insights and quotes from the brand's executives and top leaders. But finding the right way to kind of talk about the product. I mean, for every one of the things that we always offered was, for any type of custom content. I mean, we always did have ads on the page, so that's a way to really drive traffic to that brand's site if someone is in the market, because there is at least 5% of people are ready to buy, and they do want to read more about your product. So you can potentially, if you're doing content with a Forbes, or on your blog or wherever, LinkedIn, social, wherever it might be, you can find ways to kind of have call to actions, whether it's at the end of the article or an ad on the side of the page, where you're driving traffic, because at some point you do want to drive them to your site to kind of like create a conversion. But you don't want it to be like overtly upfront and too salesy in the beginning, because people will just turn it off. So that, I think it's just a fine balance to like finding the best way to kind of bring in that call to action, and just not shoving it down people's throats, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. What would you say, James? What's the future of marketing?
Yeah, this is something I think about a lot. Is kind of where things are going in marketing. Obviously, AI is changing everything in terms of the way people are creating. I feel like it's at a point where it's completely amplifying human creativity, and I think a lot of people were fearful, especially in the early days to 2023, 2024. Oh my God, this is going to replace me. It's going to take my job away. I think that the way that I'm using it is it's really like speeding up the process of getting to that aha moment of the creative ideas. It's helping refine ideas. It's helping analyze all the data and put it into the right formats. And so for me, it's really speeding up, amplifying human creativity. But one of the things that I often think about is how fast technology is changing and how many new tools are propping up. But at the same time, the principles of human psychology are still the same as they were 100 years ago, right? People still want stories. They still love people. We're emotional. Humans are emotional animals, really. And I think there was a study years ago. I think it might have been like a Harvard research study that said 95% of all decisions, even in the B2B side, involve emotion. And so you have to tap into someone's emotional side, because when they make a decision, I've been studying the decision-making process, particularly in B2B. And it's really interesting how every decision is really made the same way in some regards. I mean, sometimes, there's a small percentage of which is just like completely rational and logical, and, we need this and we're just going to go with it. But for most decisions, the rational side of the brain and so like the rational and the logical side actually comes together with the emotional side of the brain. And it's kind of like creating this. I think there was a guy that calls it fusion points, like a sales trainer. I saw this, and so it's creating that connection, really. So getting back to your question, I mean, marketing is going to continue to change from a technology standpoint, but it's never going to change the way that people are connecting to people emotionally and inspiring them, making them laugh. All the human things are really going to stay the same, at least in my point of view.
How do you invoke those emotions for something that's really boring, such as B2B software?
Well, I think a number of companies out there actually are doing a pretty good job at this. I saw one example was Regal. I think it's called Regal AI. It's like there's hundreds of these chat bot or customer service agents that are using AI. So they're doing phone AI CS agents, and they're sounding more and more human, right? And they're actually becoming more and more useful. At the end of the day, I think there is a little bit of a pushback, and people still want to talk to humans. But I think there's a place for these technologies, and especially as they get better and better. But I saw they did this really cool creative activation Regal did, where they actually they turned dogs voices into different. You could call a number and actually talk to that particular breed. So I'm a big dog person. So you can see like, oh, I want to talk to a golden retriever. Here's the number, and then you could go and have a conversation with this dog. They also did another thing where they did like you could be the next voice of AI. And so like you call this number and you kind of like, it was really tongue in cheek and funny. It was like asking you questions, and it was like, all right, repeat back to me, and then you had to repeat it back, and it was like, oh, you're going to be the next voice of AI. So they're doing all these fun activations, and I think that's what I love to see, is like bringing fun and excitement into the world of B2B. It doesn't have to be boring and dry. There's been a number of other companies. I mentioned Gong earlier. Gong is another one that early on said it doesn't have to be completely dry and boring. So I'm trying to learn about, I don't know if you have any B2B examples, but I'm trying to learn of like other ones that are doing it right, and not just being stodgy and boring.
Most of them are like boring, when in reality they should be bold, creative, playful.
Yeah.
I don't know for you, but I actually really like this webinar. It was at Exit 5
Yeah.
the other day. I think that's actually a very good example, like,
Yeah.
competition style show, something like that, on a
Yeah.
very trendy topic.
Yeah. That was how I met you for the first time, or saw you for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You did a great job, and I actually need to jump into that workflow that you shared. But yeah, that was really cool, and you brought a lot of energy into that. That was fun.
Thank you, thank you very much. Tell me, James, what's your best book on marketing or business or something like that?
Well, I think we're all kind of disciples of Dave Gerhardt. So his book Founder Marketing is a really good one. Enjoyed that book. The latest book that I just read was Courageous Marketing by Udi Ledergor. Did you read that one? It's
No.
that's really good about just being courageous and not being boring and coming up with ways to kind of look bigger than you are. They did it like Gong did a Super Bowl commercial, um, but what they actually just did it regionally instead of like buying. They couldn't afford obviously like a Super Bowl as an early stage company, and then they took that ad and they kind of shared it with people online. So there's ways like that where for another example, you do a billboard and then take a photo of it. So like it makes you look like you're bigger than you are. Like there's all these tips and tricks that he gives in strategic ways to kind of do B2B marketing. Another book that I read, and this isn't even a new book, Rand Fishkin, the founder of SparkToro, he wrote a book called Lost and Founder. That was like just from the perspective of a founder. It was like, wow, that's like a really good book. If you're a SaaS company and you're trying to figure out how to be a founder, how to get VC money and things like that. So those are the three books that I would suggest. But also, I mentioned Randall Lane. He wrote a book called The Zeros. It's like my misadventures in the days where Wall Street went crazy or whatever. So a lot of people don't realize this, but prior to coming to, or well, actually, Randall Lane started at Forbes in the 90s and then left, and he started two publications. One was called POV, and then he started one called Trader Monthly. And that Trader Monthly, so it was all about the stock brokers and traders. He actually launched 30 Under 30 there, but then with a financial collapse and I think 2009 it shut down, and then he ended up coming back to Forbes. But that's a really cool book that kind of like chronicles his journey, like prior to coming to Forbes. So recommend that one.
I have two more very quick questions and then we are wrapping up. If I remember correctly, you have two girls, and as you call yourself, you are the cheer dad, right?
Yes.
I have 1 4-year-old son. So tell me, from one father to another, what's the best lesson you can give me on parenthood?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it's obviously, I mean, it's common sense, but just like be present. I think the pandemic was really the best thing for me as a parent because I've been working from home since 2020, and I was able to actually go to so many different events. Like I still like use those opportunities, like if you're picking them up from school, to actually have conversations and just stay connected. But I was able to like coach t-ball. But as a parent, like my wife and I, one of the things we always try to do is like have dinner together at night, and after dinner we just sat up, like if it's nice outside, just sit outside and have everyone put their phones down. Right,
Yeah.
like that's the killer, is like everyone's always on their phones. Like my girls are now 10 and 13, and because it just goes, it's cliche, but like it just goes
Yeah.
by so fast. So always try to make time to kind of like have dinner at night and to like sit outside, talk, connect, and all that sort of thing. I'm really lucky too because we have a lot of family nearby. uh Actually, next door is my brother and sister-in-law, and they have kids and stuff too. So
Nice.
family is very important for sure.
Nice one,
Yeah.
nice one, nice one.
Yeah.
And the last question that I have for you: how do you win at the game called life? What is that winning for you?
Well, right now, honestly, I feel like I wouldn't win without ChatGPT because it's really amplifying my life. But at the same time, you have to make sure you're not losing out on the critical thinking and things that you don't want to kind of like go into this autopilot where you're constantly just going to ChatGPT. How do I do this? Like it's become like my replacement for like calling my dad if I need to fix something. Or like it'll
Yeah.
tell me how to do pretty much anything. Or like if I'm having an issue with, like, my website is on Squarespace, I'll literally go to ChatGPT. Why can't I fix this? And sometimes, most of the time, it gives me the right answers. Other times, I still have to YouTube it or whatever. But for me, I feel like even with all this amplification through technology of human creativity and ingenuity and things, I think you have to make sure that you're being really intentional about maintaining your own thought processes and your own critical thinking, because you're not like we don't want to completely over rely on these tools, because then we're going to lose out on kind of the inherent create critical thinking, creative problem solving skills that we as humans have really helped us stand out. Because I was thinking about this I was making my bed the other day, and I was like, you have to be intentional, and maybe have moments throughout the day. Maybe it's when you're making your bed, or when you're brushing your teeth, where you're just like still thinking on your own, and not like, going through different, coming up with your own ideas, and going for a walk, or taking a shower, or whatever it is. Like, still still think. We don't want to like leave all the thinking to the AI, because that's not what it's for. For me, the humans do the thinking. We put the input into the AI, and it helps us analyze it. It's like a kaleidoscope. It takes all this input and turns it into something else, but we still have to be the ones doing the thinking. So that's kind of the way I approach things.
Yep, definitely.
Cool.
Actually, I would agree with you. I was also recently like, uh, I'm very scared of AI, right? Not in terms of, the popular talk, like they're going to, take over the world or that kind of stuff. No, I'm actually scared that with like extensive use of artificial intelligence, we as a people might become dumber or, less capable to do certain stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for example, like, I don't know, but very, very stupid example. I caught myself yesterday, I think, one coworker, he sent me a 3-minute long voice message on Slack. And I was
Mhm.
like, hell, no way I'm going to listen to 3 minutes, right? I mean, 3 minutes, like
Put it
that's eternity. And I was like, okay, copy transcript from Slack,
transcript.
go to ChatGPT and like, give me the summary of this, right? And then like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very stupid example, right? But there are many other stuff, it even, comes to the, moment where, for example, I have two sentences and I go to ChatGPT and say, make this better, right? Make these
Right.
two sentences like more powerful than how I wrote them, right? I mean,
Right.
we might end up losing, the ability to do specific things.
Yeah.
Another fear that I have is that many people in real life will start talking the way how AI writes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also something that I'm very, very, very fearful about. James, this was a hell of an episode. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. It was awesome. I look forward to hearing your other shows too. Thank you.
You're amazing. You're amazing, man. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, that's a wrap. What an amazing episode that was. Before you go, just let me ask you a very quick question. Do you know that your B2B company might be in a great danger of AI commoditization? And if your company out there is not standing out, if you're not fighting for the attention, which is the most important currency right now, then you are slowly becoming a commodity. And when you're a commodity, no one is going to buy from you organically on their own. So Content Monk, the agency that I run, is a full funnel content marketing agency that works with fast growing B2B software companies and helps them become category leaders, the main winners in the field, with original content that stands out, so reports, lead magnets, articles, AI content optimization for LLM search, massive content distribution, and the another thing that you're doing is we are monitoring different intent social signals across social networks to see what people are engaging with your content all the time and who online is a sales ready lead for you, but they just didn't subscribe yet. So that's how we help fast growing B2B software companies grow. We offer a free consultation for everyone, so don't hesitate to go to contentmonk.io and book a free strategy session with us, where you will get a free strategy and a battle plan without hard strings attached. See you there, and see you in the next episode as well. Have a great rest of the day.